Without further ado, I would like to introduce the Honourable Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Ken Wyatt. Minister Wyatt created history in 2010 when he was elected as the first Indigenous member of the House of Representatives. In 2016, he became the first Indigenous minister to serve in a federal government after being appointed as the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Indigenous Health. Before entering politics, Minister Wyatt worked in community roles in the field of health and education, including serving as District Director for the Swan Educational Districts and the Director of Aboriginal Health in New South Wales and Western Australia. He brings this wealth of knowledge, as well as a lifetime of personal experience, to his current portfolio. It's my pleasure to welcome him here to address us.
Can I thank you for that welcome? I want to start by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people and on whose land we stand, and honour their elders past and present. It's important. But I'd like to acknowledge the following people who are here today: the Honourable Margaret Wyatt, patron of the Churchill Trust; Professor Tom Calmer, patron of the Churchill Trust. Everywhere I go, Tom, I see you. Mr. David Trebeck, Chair of the Churchill Trust; Mr. Adam Davey, CEO of the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust; Professor Deborah Terry, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Queensland and the Chair of Universities Australia; and Professor Heather Ziegler, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the University. Parliamentary colleagues, Churchill Fellows, and the Churchill Fellows, I want to thank you for the work that you've done. Often in society, there are moments in which there is a light bulb moment in thinking. And the research you've undertaken highlights the way in which you've had a concept within your mind, but saw the value of exploring the opportunities. That if we were to apply this to a think tank approach, then what you've done is you've led a think tank of thinkers to take on board those areas that are passionate to you. And when I think about that in the context of Sir Winston Churchill, he resigned as the British Prime Minister in 1955 at the age, which was young, 80. He had served under 5 reigning monarchs, survived 3 world wars, had been a writer, historian, journalist, adventurer, and a painter, on top of being a member of the British Parliament. He was also awarded a Nobel Prize for Literature in 1953. I was only 1 year old then. A great man indeed. So it's not surprising that in the wake of his passing, so many people across the Commonwealth were determined to honour his public service, inspiration, intellect and humour. Through this, the concept of travelling fellowships came about, a trust to raise local money to support everyday Australians with a life-changing opportunity, to travel overseas to conduct research in their chosen field, and a platform to share findings with the Australian community. Any Australian with passion and a commitment to making a difference in Australian society can apply for a fellowship. With no bounds on the project topic, the diversity of findings is broad. What fascinated me that was when he passed away, our then Prime Minister, Sir Robert Menzies, led the creation of a Churchill Trust for Australia. The planning for the appeal to raise funds for the establishment of a Churchill Trust in Australia was run under the code name Operation G. And a lot of us wouldn't have thought about what the G was, but it was about gratitude. There'd only ever been one national fundraising appeal in Australia at the time for the Heart Foundation. And so the volunteer collectors began one of the biggest and most significant public fundraising efforts in Australia's history. They exceeded the original target of 1 million well and truly, and the national door-knocking campaign saw organisations, community groups, clubs and individuals rally to eventually raise £2.2 million. If you index that effort it still remains one of the largest public fundraising efforts in Australia's history. It is the only time in our history that the banks opened on a Sunday. The day of the one-day door knock, so that the money could be deposited. That was a great effort, and today I'm pleased to see that this has come to that, what has come of that effort. What we have here today, including in this room, is a group of remarkable individuals supported and funded by Australia's past and present as an investment in our country and in our people. For over 50 years, the Churchill Fellows have been contributing to the betterment of this country in so many areas and in so many ways, and from so many walks of life, covering so many topics, and I commend them for that. This includes the work that Scott Falconer is doing in advocating for the use of Indigenous traditional land management and jobs for Indigenous Australians, and Jessica Cox's important work in child safety, including the safety of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. I've always quoted a man who I admired strongly, and I want to use his words again just today. Education has the power to change lives. Nelson Mandela once said that change is driven by the weapon of education, that the daughter of a miner can become a doctor, that the son of a peasant can become the president of a great country. And that's why this fellowship is so important. Because when you take a concept or an idea and you apply for a fellowship and you have the opportunity to travel to other countries, what you see is that there is a board of opportunities that is like an artist's palette, that in each location there are qualities and outstanding individuals that you engage with in order to acquire the knowledge for your chosen field. And when you bring that together, you bring back ideas for our nation that changes the concepts that we maybe take as part of the status quo and accept as ordinary, everyday approaches. When I read some of the extracts and reports in today's report, what fascinated me was the new ideas that, and there's two authors who I'll follow up with because they've presented me with some other lines of thinking that we should seriously engage around. And that is the one to do with children in out-of-home care, or children who are taken into care. But what I loved was the proposition that we should invest in the parenting element, not in the residual. That if we intervene early, then the destiny of a child can be changed. That if we take the time to explore other avenues and other opportunities, it creates an incredible reform that sometimes is not contested in the mind of ideas that are important. And so if we think of everybody who has travelled away on a Churchill Fellowship, then that's an incredible encyclopedia of key areas that are important to the social fabric and structure of our nation. Even the recognition of cultural learning and the way in which knowledge is transmitted, but is not transmitted just to Indigenous Australians, but to anybody who has a role in the management of the land and fire control. So I want to commend everybody, not only the trustees, but to all of those who have been participants, but equally to those who weren't recipients of a Churchill Fellowship, who thought about the possibility of accessing an avenue in order to enhance their own knowledge. When you consider Churchill's statesmanship, then what we're doing is creating the opportunity for Australians to take a position on a topic that is close to their heart, to explore it, to consider the avenues of so many ideas, and then to come back and share that. That's what's important, and that is the ongoing legacy of the fellowships. Because those fellowships not only inform the individual, but they inform other Australians. So in keeping with your plan to start the Trust Operation G, I'd like to show my gratitude by saying Yanga, or thank you in Yunga. And I look at the words there: learn globally, inspire locally. That's a powerful transition of shifting knowledge from one location or several locations to a point of intersection that makes a difference for everyday Australians who are challenged, but whose thinking also may show that they want a future that is based on a better outcome for the generations that follow them. In a sense, we're looking at our grandchildren when we do this work. And what we're doing is hoping to influence policy in a very constructive way that gives everyone a chance to think, to contribute, and to enjoy a better life. So if I look in this room, we've got so many Churchill Fellows and trustees. It's really like having the Churchill Policy Room and being part of a team of people whose passion and commitment wants to make a difference. So it's a great pleasure to be here to say that I love what you do. I want to say that I am pleased to launch that whole concept of the Churchill Policy Room on a virtual basis, because you transcend not only your community, but you transcend our country and other countries, because in your conversations with people, in your quest for knowledge, you would have also challenged their thinking and had them reflect on the questions that you asked. So congratulations to all, and it's great to be here with you today.